Purpose Highway is a space for discussions that drive connections toward people's highest purpose to build a better self and a better world. Join me for Season 1, where I start to uncover stories of entrepreneurs and thinkers that are making an impact. I'm your host, Scott Mason, and enjoy today's episode. I am back for yet another episode with the one and only eminent Barton Jackson. He's laughing as I say it because he gets all modest on me, but that's a lot of his charm. Barton is a VP and small business relationship manager with TD Bank. He is heavily involved in a number of different community organizations, particularly those that support the LGBTQ plus community. He is also an artist. And while you all are watching this podcast, I want you to take a few minutes and look at that artwork that you see behind him, because that is his own. I'm sure we're going to talk about that a little bit more, but let's get right to it. Barton, I'm going to just start the conversation by saying you and I met each other through the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, which is the largest organization in the country that supports small business owners and connects them with corporations that are interested in bringing suppliers and other strategic partners into their orbits that are part of the LGBTQ plus community. It is an intimidating organization, I've got to say, as a small business person to enter, because you walk in looking like me and you see all of these glamorous people in these glamorous corporate settings, and I just wanted to hide in a corner and die, and just die. But you, I'll never forget it. You were my mentor. You took me by the hand. You went out of your way to make me feel welcome. And one of the things that has been beautiful about knowing you, both as a partner in GLCC, but as someone who I've dealt with in a business context before, and also seen and heard about in various other contexts, is that you are so connected with what NGLCC does and what the community does. You bring it. And that reflects to me someone who is truly committed with connecting with their purpose. You know, we've spent a lot of time getting to know each other, and I'm sure folks will want to get to know you more. You started out in Boise, Idaho. How on earth did you end up as a VP at TD Bank in the big city, growing up in Boise? What happened?
Blame my husband? I don't know. No,
we'll just blame him for everything.
Yeah, it's a good blame to have, right? So I actually did not want to be a banker. My father was a banker. That's how he met my mother. He was designing the first computerizations of the credit card system, taking it off the old punch card system. And my mom's bank was the guinea pig. So they met on the tarmac as the delegation in Idaho. And then all three of my aunts were in banking as well. So I wanted nothing to do with it. I was a custom fine art framer. Until, it just wasn't a sustainable form of income. And that's when I entered the banking world, at one of the larger employers in the Treasure Valley. That's what we call the area of the three cities that I, live in from Idaho. And, after college, moved to Seattle, and from Seattle to New York. But the whole reason, or the impetus for the move to New York was my husband, who I met in Seattle.
Very nice. So you are one of those folks that ended up in the big city because of love.
I know. It's strange to think. But yeah, it's been an incredible journey. It's been a fun journey. And it's been one of those where I'm really thankful for the moves. When I was growing up in Idaho, I wanted to come out. When did you come out?
I came out when I was between my junior and senior year of high school, but it was a gradual thing. I went through this phase where I wanted to tell people, including the girl I was dating at the time, that I was bisexual. Oh, the things we say.
That's fair, yeah. So I was a little bit later of a bloomer. I came out at 22, and I tried to come out kind of gradually, testing the water at work first rather than my home. Growing up in Idaho, especially when I was we were still seeing a number of friends and loved ones in the community where when they came out to their families, they were being disowned. One of the more telling of those that kind of informed my caution was a really good friend of mine, came out to his family and was immediately kicked out of the house in the dead of winter. The part of Idaho he grew up in, has a negative 20-degree Fahrenheit winter.
Oh my God.
So he's in his car in a neighbor's garage, to survive the winter. And then they were like, okay, well, we've done our good Christian deed. Now go find your own. And that kind of 180 just scared you. Also growing up there, seeing how there were no resources for the LGBTQ2 plus community. Our HIV/AIDS center was the size of a shoebox in a strip mall. Nobody wants to go to a resource center in a strip mall. It's highly visible. It wasn't safe. So we had a huge problem with complications to HIV/AIDS, drug addiction, suicide, and violence. And so, I was really afraid of what my life was going to be like when I came out. So, I came out at work in the frame shop. At the time, the company was going through some management changes. And so they were a year late on my annual review. And in the process of coming out, I know, right? And I was patient about it. I was in college. I'm like, whatever, I've got a scholarship. This is so I can buy top ramen, right? It's not the priority, but it became the priority when the woman who's in charge of HR, pulled me into the office and said, hey, we're really, really sorry about this. You totally deserve a raise. It's going to be retroactive. So, the college student me is like, oh my gosh, so much more top ramen. We go from there to, everybody starts finding out that I'm gay at work. And then the new manager pulls me and goes, your raise isn't going to be retroactive. We're not willing to take that expense on you. And, then begins to, imply that, because they know I'm gay, they could just terminate me. Cause I always get the two terms mixed up, right to work or at will state, where they can terminate you or you can exit your job for without any justification. They don't owe you a reason. So, that infuriated me. It was the first time, my whole self was weaponized against me, and it made me very angry. So somebody that I had been dating at the time actually said, well, why don't you come work for this financial institution? I was like, oh no, the family trade. I don't want to do that. And, but then I saw the wage, which, was modest, but compared to making, I think it was like $7 an hour in a frame shop it was like, incredible compared to that. And then I found out, I could still help people. It wasn't as creative, but it was nice to still feel like you could help people. And because it was financial, it was just as personal as, ensconcing somebody's artwork or family heirloom in wood and glass and matte paper. So, but at the time, that was the early 2000s, and we were still getting, this sort of diversity, quote unquote diversity training that was really tolerance. I don't know if you ever went through that training, the tolerance training in the 90s and early 2000s.
I don't think we were that advanced where I was. I would love to hear exactly what is tolerance training. Is that where like you hold your breath and you like say, I grab onto my suspenders and say, okay, I tolerate you? Is it like how to do?
Pretty much. It was literally like, hey, the folks that are in the majority here, they're going to tolerate that you're here. Live and let live. Understand that their worldview is going to disagree with you, and you've got to be okay with that, and they've got to be okay with you, just for the sake of respect and productivity. Which kind of, even though it technically was relatively more progressive than the frame shop that I had come from, began to create this honed sense of anger and frustration that I was already experiencing just from looking out into the lack of support, for the community in Idaho. And, it very quickly, became just this boiling point for me. I was not a great young professional. I went from like always being at work on time and industrious to, finding excuses not to come in, feeling like I wasn't valued. And would go out late and party and all this terrible stuff, right? And not, be accountable the next day.
Yeah.
And, looking back on it, I go, wow, I was a terrible employee for that financial institution. But at the same time, looking now almost 12 years back, going, but at the same time, I was being told, well, you're not respected or valued or loved. You are tolerated because we want complacency and comfort, not for you, but for us. And, that started to kind of hone my purpose. I left that financial institution after college. I moved to Seattle, Washington, and that is where I was first blown away by economic resources, social resources, community being able to come together with some sort of infrastructure, right? I couldn't believe it. I ended up working for the oldest credit union in the Pacific Northwest. They're an amazing credit union, so shout out to Verity. I don't mind naming you. The chief financial officer at the time used to hold these quarterly fiscal report breakfasts in coordination with the CEO and the board and everything. And whenever it came to the fiscal report, it was hysterical because he's an openly gay man with a husband and 2 adopted sons. And this
beautiful.
is like early 2000s still. So for me, it's like a worldview I didn't even think existed, right? And, here he comes up for the first time ever that I'm meeting him to sing the fiscal report for the credit union to a Broadway tune. He wasn't the best singer, but it was super entertaining.
Wow. How come I didn't? I want to work at that bank. I'm quitting my day job now.
Gosh.
I'm going there.
Well, and here I am, like a lowly teller, being invited to the fiscal reports. Everybody in the bank, in the credit union, gets to go to these. It didn't matter your position, which was so cool and
That's
so
amazing.
Informative and so empowering. Yeah. And, because it's a credit union, it's smaller in size, right? There are only 6 branches. Now they have more. But, at the time, everybody knew each other and everybody was involved. So, the CEO would visit the branch, would know us all by name. Same thing with the CFO, who's now the CEO, and, still reaches out every once in a while to check on me here in New York. I mean, he's just an incredible person, gave me letters of recommendation when I came to New York and needed them for interviews. And it was just so incredible. But the other thing he did for me was he helped me shift, my anger at, the rest of our neighbors and our citizens, that don't share love with the community from a place of anger and shifted it more into a focus of purpose. And he was the one that introduced me to the Greater Seattle Business Association, which is their LGBT Chamber of Commerce. And there I saw, for the first time, LGBTQ+ professionals networking, building community, building legacy and purpose. And it made me so happy. And here I am, this, little teller in a suit, with no business cards, but, collecting them and meeting people for the first time and seeing that, the outside world can educate and can inform, but ultimately you empower and shape your own purpose and your own reasons for doing what you do. And so, through that experience, I became more involved in financial education and volunteer work and community organization through financial institutions. So I determined as a teller, at the early onset of my career, because of this CFO who afforded me the opportunity, to, really want to become somebody who leveraged his profession and his skill set back into his community. And that's been my MO now for a decade in banking.
And anyone, in a way, then it makes sense that of all of the things that you could be, you would end up a relationship manager, because that's really at the end of the day what that's about. But you said something earlier that I want to delve into a little bit more deeply. And that was just, you said it almost as an aside, but sometimes there's such nuggets in those little asides. I just can't help but dig them out.
Yeah.
We find our purpose. And that is up to us to be able to do. Talk to me a little bit about how that revelation came to you and what that means, because to me, that's very, very interesting. And people live their entire lives without ever understanding that.
Yeah. So, the way I kind of, I don't want to say, some things are lived and not learned. I think it's such a cliche. I try to avoid it, but I think it's kind of true. No matter who you are, right? You're interacting with this internal and external world around you and inside of you, right? You have good experiences, you have bad experiences. You have interactions that tell you how you are valued or maybe how you are not, or just overall neglected, right? So speaking more specifically to my experience, my formative 20s in Idaho, here I am going, hey, nobody cares about this community. The general assumption is that, you come out as gay, you get, HIV, it complicates to AIDS, and you die. You're not economically of value. You're not, creating families. You're not doing anything other than, going to a bar or what have you. So, and I think I just lost video, but I'll just keep going. So
yeah, that happens. It's technology.
Yeah. So, here we are, young 20s, young gay, and only having friends now in the LGBT community because you feel so alienated. And that's all very real and all very experienced, but it's also all very emotional. There's no necessarily direction to it. And at some point you discover and learn that you can either remain kind of directionless and fixate on the outer stimulus or outer stimuli that you're being given and the feedback from either good or bad forces, or you use that information and your emotional intelligence and your experiences, and you decide to set a purpose and a path for yourself. Nobody has the right to tell you what your value is. Beyond the material transactions of the world, right? You set your value internally. You decide what your path is going to be. People don't get to tell you that. But if you have the ability to let your experiences, let your emotions, let your introspection start to inform you, you can hone that. Like, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be happy. It's okay to have, knee-jerk responses to things. But then there needs to come a point where they are informing you and you're guiding yourself and you're determining what your purpose and your value is. And I think when I was in Seattle and I was working for that credit union, that's when the light bulb came on, because I had focused so much on the negative and just seeing that one positive, but then thinking to myself, now, wait a minute, these people existed before my negative experiences. What are they doing differently that, they're of or around the same age, but, they're making more money than me, they're stable, they're clearly happier, or more satisfied. What's the difference? And then I realized, these people have a drive or a purpose. So I was really fortunate to have the mentor that I did in Seattle, because I don't think without him, it would have probably taken me much longer to get, where I am.
One of the things you said a few minutes ago that in a way wraps up and wraps into one of the most powerful things that I like to talk about, which is that our value is intrinsic and that we have it irrespective of who we are. I am of a strong feeling that as a culture, we have commodified ourselves as people to such an extent that there are entire populations that we deem expendable. For instance, in the 80s, 90s, even early 2000s, people with HIV that couldn't be treated, right? We had, as part of the serious national discourse in the 1980s by major religious leaders, putting LGBT people, or at least those with AIDS, into concentration camps or locking them up and sending them away. We're having similar discussions about populations now, particularly vis-a-vis the situation that we are in. That is why you're, I'm sure, working from home a lot these days. And
sure,
when we view each other as commodities, what I mean by that is that we view each other, even if it's on a subconscious level, as only by how much economic value we bring to the table. And if you buy into that myth, then there are all sorts of destructive outcomes that can happen, particularly if you are someone who might be beyond your income earning years. You might have a disability, you might or you might not have skills that, even if they are intrinsically valuable, they're not economically valued. For instance, childcare comes to mind. And so finding that value and making a statement, particularly from someone in the financial sector, that that value is something that you have the right to determine, has particular force. So when you as a financial person are saying that, it's different than if a lot of people who otherwise might be perceived as having a vested interest in that might say it. And so how do you take that then into how you operate as a banker, as someone who is in the financial world? Because I cannot imagine that on some level, that commodification, even if it's not an overt value that you're forced to impose into the relationships or that your company wants on you, it's still, you have to be productive. You still have to account for numbers. How do you sort of toe that line as a person? What ways have you chosen to compromise or not compromise, or build your own vision if that's what you've chosen to do?
That's a really good question. And I think I'm fortunate to work for the employer that I work for, which is TD Bank, because I don't think that. Well, let me backtrack. There's a general industry issue with banking and financial institutions, right, where they have commodified themselves. And let's be real, there's products and there's services, right? So we're holding companies for transactions and for accounts and for the management of wealth, however great or small. But at the end of the day, bankers either, will do this internally, or a community again will externally, reinforce an image of what a banker should be. Right. And I would say, ever since, the 90s into the 2000s, maybe even the late 80s, the shift has been less of, that's a member of our community, that's somebody who can connect us to people, that's somebody who can provide, some semblance of guidance or advice. And if they honestly can't, there's other resources they may be able to connect us to. And that had switched to, they're going to sell me a checking account, or I only come to them when I need a loan, or, if I'm a nonprofit, can they introduce me to their foundation for charitable giving? So we became less about being people, that integrate into the financial milestones, health, visions, goals, and lifestyles of both our consumer clients and our business clients. And we became more just, the modality of dollar signs. And, it's easy to buy into that narrative still, right? Because I've had plenty of experiences networking where I'm introducing myself and letting them know I represent, a bank. And it's immediately like they just sense I'm going to sell them something, or, there's this immediate ask for something from me, rather than getting to know each other, building relationships, and really determining how we can invest in one another. Yeah. But, it's our responsibility, again, to inform ourselves of those experiences, remember what we've decided our purpose is going to be, and redirect that conversation or that exchange with whomever the audience is, whether it's a client or a prospect, a member of a community, you name it. So, for me, I'm lucky that I have an employer who sees things the same way, right? Like, we're a for-profit company, but, it's still community-centric. It's still client-centric. I decided to apply for the bank that I work for now, because when I secret shopped them, because that's what I do, I walked into their location on 94th and Broadway, and here was this woman on the floor who later became my store supervisor, who was greeting everybody by name. And if she didn't know their name, she wanted to know who they were.
Right.
She asked me who I was, what I needed. When I told her I was there for an interview, she immediately, sat me down, told me who she was, gave me a little bit of background on the store location, let me know that she was going to go tell the manager I was here, came back, checked in on me. And it just felt like, a part of the community. And that's for me is really important. So, I don't necessarily feel like I'm pressured with, you've got to sell widgets. You got to worry about a specific, financial goal, because there is that space to have, my model of functioning, which is, I want to have relationships with customers. I want to have relationships with my community and colleagues. Like, somebody doesn't have to be a client for me to want to extend resources or expertise or have conversations even, just to do what I can to connect. And, anybody who, I guess it goes for really any profession. If you decide that your purpose is to leverage who you are back into your community, be that minority or residential or otherwise, you can do that. There's nothing stopping you, during your working hours or after work, providing what expertise or guidance that you can. And people, I think, genuinely appreciate it. But I also think it's a great way to build relationships that are far more productive than, a one-off transaction.
Absolutely.
You have people who can connect and reconnect you to other individuals or other organizations and build this wealth of resources and programming and in my case, potentially financial support for a company's milestone, So for me, connectivity and relationships and fostering community through, your skill sets in your day job and bringing that to the rest of you, I think it's really important. I think you have to integrate your whole self as part of your purpose, but that's my high horse.
Well, I think it's a beautiful high horse to be on. And I think that a lot of people will appreciate hearing that, especially being reminded that no matter what you do and no matter where you are day to day, there's always that possibility of bringing your full self, finding your purpose and connecting that, and then, fully expressing that with whatever you're doing. So that was inspirational. And one of the things I love about talking to you is that sort of inspiration comes from such a stereotypically unexpected source. But at the same time, it's all the more authentic and real because of that. Barton, how can people find out more about you, and where can we see more of these paintings? I hear you're selling them now. Talk about Renaissance, man. My goodness. Banker and painter? What next? Are you going to take over the world?
No. That's too much management for me. No, so, listen, going back to finding your purpose, you don't have to sacrifice any part of yourself. So, I love art. I've always loved art. I thought I would be an artist, going into college and just, realized that wasn't for me, or at least a paid or successful artist, I guess I should say. But who knows, that could always change. Those things are fluid. So, I keep up with doing my artwork. I love abstracts. I don't even remember my Instagram handle, to be completely honest. I want to say it's at BL Jackson 1984. Yeah, that's it. So you can see my limited run of artwork there. Also, you can find me on LinkedIn, Barton Jackson. I'm the only one at TD Bank, so it should be an easy find. So you can filter to New York if that helps. And yeah, those are my two major social media platforms professionally. And then, of course, if you want to learn more of my coming out story, I did a wonderful storytelling session with a great nonprofit called I'm from Driftwood. Mm-hmm. And that's on YouTube. So if you search I'm from Driftwood, Barton Jackson, you can see the full story there.
And I have seen it. I heartily endorse it. And it was in no small part why I wanted you to be on this podcast. Barton, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for bringing your full purpose and your full self into this meeting today, and for sharing it with folks that might be watching this. Everybody.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been awesome. Everybody, this is Scott Mason checking out. See you next episode. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Join our community today at purposehighway.com and subscribe to get notified when new episodes go live. Scott Mason, checking out.